Deus Vult! Deus Vult! Deus Vult! Behold, my name is Sir Davvy, Chap, and it is my sworn duty to teach you all of the glory of the Paladin, the duty and honor of each of its oaths, and the strategic know-how to make yourself the shiniest force on the field. But beware, there may be others who give in to temptation and dare to imply that not everything that I say is 100% fact. These people are to be flogged in the street for their heresy, for anything that a Paladin speaks is of the utmost importance, and everyone should do exactly what I say all the time, always. But with these terms understood, let us ride to glory! So, the Paladin is the half-martial, half-caster, heroic armored avenger that leads bands of adventurers with the power of truth, justice, and the American way. The Paladin is the origin of the knight in shining armor, using its abilities to heal wounds, protect the innocent, and smite down people with the righteous fury of get dunked on. The Paladin is also mainly known for the balls-flappingly stupid ways that the people run their alignment. But, if you've checked out my common misconceptions video, you'll know that that doesn't have to be the case. Also, when 5th edition descended from the heavens, it carried the proclamation that paladins no longer have to be lawful good, which means that now you can crusade the Holy Lands without worrying about the moral ramifications. On the tabletop, paladins serve mainly as a tank, healer, and buff provider, generally preferring to stand in front and around their allies so that they can benefit from the multitude of buff auras that the paladin will gain over time, as well as keeping the paladin in range to use its healing abilities on fallen allies. From the start, the paladin gains the ability to sense celestials, fiends, or undead, which is the 5e version of being able to sense good and evil, since 5e has been doing its best to keep alignments out of everything but character backgrounds, and you also learn the other signature paladin ability called Lay on Hands, which allows you to finger people to heal them. This ability is decent, but it's more for topping off people's health or giving one or two people just enough health to keep them up so that they can get stabbed again. As you progress through your training, you gain a fighting style buff that lets you lean into whatever your normal playstyle is. You gain the almighty Smite ability, which adds 2d8 damage to your attack, but is ultimately overshadowed by a few of the smite spells that you can pick up instead, namely Thunderous Smite, which does the same damage bonus and also turns your weapon into a golf club. You become immune to disease because Justice does not get the flu. You gain the twin auras of coolness in the form of the Aura of Protection and the Aura of Courage, which make you better at saving throws and keep you from being frightened, respectively, and you can eventually beat people with extra radiant damage, and your final general ability lets you outright cleanse spell effects on you and your friends. I personally view the Paladin as the perfect new player class due to its simplicity to understand and be good at, especially for those new players that are looking to use magic, since the Paladin starts learning magic at level 2, giving the player a chance to learn the mechanics of the game periodically, from martial combat and positioning in battle to a very slow sink into the world of magic, especially since the Paladin gets a lot of good armor at the start, along with a good amount of health, and almost all of the spells are just quality of life improvements rather than complicated put X here to make tentacles hit Y amount of opponents. I always like to recommend the Paladin to anyone who's just starting out in D&D. Strategy for the Paladin isn't complicated either. Be on the front lines, healing friends, and knocking away foes like the righteous leader you were born to be, and make sure that you use your spell slots very sparingly, since you get almost none compared to other casters. As long as you follow this general guideline and make sure that you make the most out of your aura abilities, you'll be Deus Volting in no time. And to assist you on your more role-playing aspects of the game, every Paladin swears an oath at 3rd level. The oath is the Paladin's archetype, but it takes it a step further by giving a code of tenets that the Paladin must abide by lest he fall to the dark side. These paths aren't horribly restrictive like the alignments of the past, but they once again serve as good training wheels for players who are just getting into the roleplaying. And if you really like an oath's abilities but not the restrictions, you can always ask your DM to drop them for you. But the Paladin currently has 6 paths to choose from, which is decent, but nowhere near the insane amount that its clerical cousin has. Also, like the cleric, I won't be going over the Oathbreaker Paladin since it's only found in the DM guide and it was made more to be the villain of a campaign. Still, if you're gung-ho about being a bad guy, ask your DM if the Oathbreaker Paladin is right for you. But let's swear fealty to our first oath, the Oath of Devotion. The Oath of Devotion, being the first archetype you see, is the most Paladinian Paladin there is. If you've seen my other class guides, you know the drill. This archetype doesn't change the Paladin, but rather enhances its capabilities, giving it holy light damage with channel divinity, giving it a better version of the cleric's turn undead that affects undead and fiends, preventing you and your friends from being charmed via an aura, permanently giving you a protection from good and evil spell, and finally, making your armor so shiny and reflective that you emanate a shining light that burns out your enemy's corneas if they get too close to you. I don't really have much to say about this archetype except that it's a solid choice for paladins that just want to keep doing what they're doing, so go ahead and keep bashing and flashing your way to victory. There are many words that come in mind when thinking of a paladin. Knight, honor, lawfulness, plans? Yes, indeed, the Oath of the Ancients asked the question of, what if we took the Paladin and made it bushier? Ancient Paladins aim to protect good in all of its forms, being unconcerned with the political drama that is law and chaos, and apparently their best way to do this is to kneel and swear worship to Captain Planet. he's a hero. As an ancient paladin, you gain a modified turn undead that works on Fey and Fiends instead of undead. You can summon vines on people with your channel divinity to do wholesome and honorable things to. You have one of the sickest abilities in the whole game, Aura of Warding, which just flats out give you resistance to damage from all spells. You gain a drop to 1 hit point instead of getting knocked out completely ability that also makes age not affect you for some reason. And your capstone ability ends up turning you into Captain Planet. He's a hero. For a full minute, which does a multitude of things, from rapid healing to faster casting to making it harder to resist your tree powers. Like most archetypes for the Paladin, your playstyle isn't changed much with this oath, although it does lend more towards crowd control, especially by telling spellcasters to go fungus themselves. All in all, this is one of my favorite Paladin archetypes, and I, for one, welcome our vegan overlords. Hey, have you ever wanted to play a Paladin, but instead of worrying about honor and loyalty and all that boring stuff, you just want to punch some evil in the face? Well, the Oath of Vengeance makes that possible. The Oath of Vengeance does away with that pesky morality and spends all of its time punching people and shouting, "Where is your god now? Oh right, he's with me!" Your turn ability this time is heavily modified, only affecting one person, and instead of forcing them to run away, your mere presence either slows them down or scares them into stop moving entirely. Your other channel divinity ability says, "Screw that guy in particular," and gives you advantage on all attacks against that person. Afterwards, your attacks of opportunity let you chase down the person who's trying to flee from you. You get reaction attacks whenever your designated "fuck that guy" tries to attack, and you will finally be able to turn into an avatar of pure rage and aggression that gives you wings and terrifies anybody who somehow wasn't already scared hopeless. Now this archetype, if you didn't notice, does away with the paladins should help their team aspect and goes straight for the throat, disabling opponents' movements and essentially letting you choose any one person out of the group of bandits to tell them that they got a purty mouth, meaning it's perfect for players who want to prove that the only thing scarier than a smiting paladin is a smiting paladin who just realized that he's late for an appointment with your face. Now, from the world of the Sword Coast, we have the Knight in Shining Knight, the god that would save the queen, the paladin who swore the Oath of the Crown. The big thing about this archetype is that it leans really heavily on the law and order side of the paladin, which brings it right back to where it was in 3rd edition, with paladins raging over every patch of grass that you weren't supposed to cross and agonizing over the morality of whether or not it's okay to kill the Lord of all Darkness. In game mechanic terms, this translates into being more tanky and immovable in battle, with your channel divinity abilities allowing you to both heal people around you if they're very injured, and also use Chris Henson's Take a Seat ability to prevent anyone of your choice from moving away from you. Afterwards, you can take damage for other players, it becomes harder for you to be paralyzed or stunned, and like all paladin archetypes, your last ability powers you up into your final form, giving you resistance to martial weapons, having an aura of wisdom around you, and flat out giving people advantage on death saving throws, because apparently your presence is enough for your badly mutilated ally to be all like, it's not so bad. I'm gonna freak out if I have to say this again, but once again, reinforcing the idea that the Paladin is the most new player-friendly class, this archetype changes nothing about how the Paladin is played, but only enhances the survivability aspect of it and its party members. It bears repeating, though, that simplicity should not be confused for capability, because this archetype is just as good as the rest of them. If you want to have even more protection when you go serve the Queen, try peeling on the Oath of the Crown. So, veering away from all of the violence and the anger and the fealty to a nation's queen, the Oath of Redemption looks at all that they have accomplished as a Paladin and sees that they were mistaken in believing that everything should be solved by just kicking face and taking ass. So they adopted a more tolerant life of peace and tranquility, which they then used as a weapon to kick more names and take more ass. Redemption Paladins are the most unique thing to come out of the Paladin in a good long while, and it's one of the few that can drastically change the way that you want to work your shiny booty. First off, your channel divinity now makes you better at persuasion checks, and it also allows you to attempt to hurt anyone who hurts your friends with a beam of light that does damage equal to the amount that was done to your friend, because you know the biggest part of pacifism is vindictive holy radiant damage. After that, you can take damage for the people around you instead of having them take it, you get the fighter's healing ability at low health, and finally, you become an emissary of peace, which means that you have resistance to all damage, and you still damage anybody who's stupid enough to hit you. All but the last of these abilities have no qualms with you face murdering anybody while you use them, which leads to Redemption Paladins that go around hitting everything and then rebuking the ones who fight back, because sometimes, if you want peace, prepare for war. Granted, the tenets of the oath that you swear are supposed to protect against that, but there are always those DMs that don't really look at your tenets anyway. So, if you understand that the only true kindness is beating the bad out of people, seek redemption with this oath. And finally, where the crown was militant and vengeance was edgy, the Oath of Conquest takes the best parts of both of them and transforms into the ultimate representation of Deus Vult! You gain the most edgy tenets of all, with things like douse the flames of hope, apparently seared into your upper arm. And your whole life revolves around murder stabbing everybody so that you can become the ultimate ruler of everything that exists. Somehow this class was okayed as a, well, the player might not be evil, but even then the abilities did not get that memo. To start with, you can use your channel divinity to scare the bonkers out of people with a single eye glance, and you can also use it to give yourself a +10 to one of your attacks, which is guaranteed to hit for all but the lowest of rolls. And it puts the Conquest Paladin in line with his most direct cousin, the War Cleric, which gets the same ability. From there, you can prevent frightened people from moving just by looming over them, and that same ability scares them so much that they take psychic damage for it. You rebuke anybody who dared to strike your glistening black armor with your own psychic damage, and your final form turns you into Paladin the Undying, giving you resistance to everything, an extra attack, and an increased critical radius. This archetype was invented to be the most terrifying thing on the battlefield, and by golly does it deliver. It does a better job at being a Paladin Berserker than the Vengeance Oath does, which makes me wonder why they even have both of them if they're just going to cover the same general roles. In any case, when you play a Conquest Paladin, you're essentially throwing caution to the wind and throwing shade at everybody that you don't like, and throwing your javelins at everybody that you really don't like. So, if your heart is set on doing nothing but teaching unfortunate goblins exactly where you lay your hands, this is the archetype for you. But that'll about do it. I hope you enjoyed this video, leave a like and comment if you did, and maybe subscribe if you want to be a cool dude. And if you want to stay up to date on all of your Davvy news, I'll leave a link to my Discord in the description below. But yeah, Davvy out.